another episode of Witty CFB. Your host, Rob Sheply here. And on today's episode, we got the Southern Fried Gentleman, JD Wyatt, who is a part of Southern Fried Sports and also is a part of GreenvilleSportsMedia.com. And dude, it's great to have you on. I've been watching some of your shorts on YouTube and everything, and I'm really excited to have you here. And I appreciate being generous with your time.
Hey man, I thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. That they call me the gentleman for a reason. Chivalry is not dead. And so y'all, Rob is the man. We've had a great convo so far. So happy to have a new one coming up. We're going to talk some Gamecock football, and it's my first time being a guest. So again, just so happy to be here. Thank you so much, Rob, for having me.
Yeah, and again, I'm super excited here too. And we've talked about this off camera too. You got a couple different projects going on between Southern Fried Sports, some things you're doing on the radio or whatnot, and also at Greenville Sports Media. So can you just give the audience just a little spiel, kind of what your projects are, what you're up to, and any future plans you might have going on?
Absolutely. So, yep, this is, like I said, this is my first guest appearance that I'm making. We have another one coming up tomorrow with the South Florida Tribune. We're going to see if we can't get Rob involved with some of these great people that I've been able and privileged to get a hold to. GreenvilleSportsMedia.com. I have articles up on there. I predicted Ohio State to beat Notre Dame just this past week. And there's a ton more articles coming. We've got a Carolina Gamecock baseball outlook coming. We got to talk about their men's basketball program. So any kind of sports, your comments, we welcome everything, all opinions. I'm just here to be a gentleman, unify the fans, have a good time talking sports, and maybe have a hot take here or there. Who knows? We'll see what happens.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You got to spice things up a little bit. And we'll definitely make sure to put all the handles in the bio and all that good stuff, be able to check you out and everything. But with that said, ready to talk Gamecock football. And at least to me, this first things first, let's talk about the Citrus Bowl a couple weeks ago where they faced Illinois, and they came up a little bit short, but at least on paper and just the game in general, in many ways it was an exciting matchup because I think Illinois and South Carolina kind of in the same sort of echelon in the sense of, hey, just a couple key players here and there, and they could really be making some noise. So, what were your general thoughts about the bowl game?
Well, it was Mike Shula's first time calling a game for the Gamecocks with LaNorris. I feel like they wanted him to stay in the pocket. I feel like these bowl games, even as high profile as the Citrus Bowl is, it's a glorified spring game. It's a glorified scrimmage. They were very vanilla. And LaNorris obviously played not to get hurt. I felt like it wasn't like he was out there playing the Super Bowl, where you run the ball, you do what you got to do to win the game. So I would like to see more creativity from the Gamecocks offense. The Citrus Bowl, though, the one thing that really got me all bugged up was obviously the drama between Beamer and Belima. Beamer, I get it, man. You were upset that he was substituting late. But guess what? If he's outsmarting you, outsmart him.
Exactly.
If he is trying to sub people in late, an idea, stop subbing people maybe. Isn't that what great offenses do? Think about Lane Kiffin's offense. He tries to wear you down to the 25, 20-yard line. And when they get up and rush down to the ball, they don't want you to have the chance to sub. They want your defense at a mismatch. So why are you even subbing people to allow him to sub people? Just keep the same people in the game. And then the whole trick play, hands out by Belima, yes, I hate that too. So, but Beamer, man, you can't let people get under your skin like that, man. You have to keep your composure.
Exactly.
You are the picture of the program. The camera is always on you. And so when you see yourself throwing a tantrum on the sideline or trying to fight the other head coach, I knew at that moment the Gamecocks were toast in the Citrus Bowl.
Exactly, too. And, Brett Bielema, he's a well-experienced head coach, had extended at Wisconsin, had an extended in Arkansas. He knows the ropes, and, he definitely deserves a big shout out for what he's done too. But at least in my opinion, just exactly what you said. Once when Beamer kind of reacted that way, that's when, at least to me, the wheels kind of fell off. Beamer was probably perhaps overly aggressive with some of the calls, and quite frankly, just some of the sloppy play and turnovers too really kind of led Illinois to win that game too.
Right. And here we've seen the way too early top 25s. They've got the Gamecocks up at 8. The final AP poll though came out today, got the Gamecocks at 19. I put them at 16 or so maybe. They should have beat Illinois. And granted, and here's a question for you, Rob. I want to get your take on this. So, just a day or so prior in the playoff game or in the bowl game for Miami, we saw Cam Ward sit out. He played the first half, got the record, then sat out the second half. And then here I am, though, as a Gamecock fan. I've got Rocket Sanders and I've got Kyle Kennard.
Yeah, Kyle Kennard, yeah.
Both of those guys sat out the game completely, didn't play the first half. And so I said at that point, I can't criticize Cam Ward too much. But then fast forward to the Citrus Bowl, and we've got Nick Emanwari, plays the first half, sits out the second half, doesn't tell anybody, nobody knows what's going on. And so at that point, though, I almost wanted to criticize the guy, but I'm like, wait, Rocket Sanders didn't play at all. Kyle Kennard didn't play at all. Cam Ward also played a half. Like, what am I to make of this?
Yeah, I mean, the answer is twofold, right? Because just as you mentioned too, the bowl games have taken on a different meaning. And I guess I'm a little more generous when it comes to the bowl games. I'm not going to sit there and say it's some sort of spring game, because to some degree, I think about it in the sense of, hey, these kids busted their ass. They've won more than 6 games. And hypothetically, you're supposed to travel somewhere new, have a new experience, play a little football, go home, and hopefully get some revenue money for your school. That's the most basic sense. But to get back to your other question, no, I don't really think the kids necessarily owe anything. I mean, it's at the end of the day, the game should be optional. Now, granted, would it be in everyone's best benefit if Kyle Kennard and Rocket Sanders and all these kids played? Yeah, absolutely. But to sit there and ask these kids to play when they're risking their draft stock, it's just not possible. And for Cam Ward to even play the first 2 halves, if I'm Miami, I would just be grateful with that and move on, because I don't care what insurance policy you have on these players. I mean, I know if I were the Tennessee Titans at number 1, or whoever's interested in Cam Ward, I know I wouldn't want him out there. I mean, I sit there and say to myself, hey, he's essentially my guy now. And again, as a fan, I would love to have him out there. I love to have all the players out there, but in this day and age of college football, I just think we're at the point where the players don't necessarily owe their schools to really do anything unless it's in a moral way.
Right. And no, I don't disagree with that at all. But then that's like you said, it's twofold, because that's where all the issue comes in, is because now all of a sudden, all of these fans, they want to judge all these conferences based on what happened in the bowl games. Just like Clemson fans held it, we just beat them.
Yeah, these guys won the Palmetto Bowl 17-14, which again, I think that's talk about that and having a 9-win season compared to your 2023 season. Those should be the 2 big takeaways, not necessarily the Citrus Bowl.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, we just beat them, but see, and then we can't take anything away from beating Clemson though, because Miami lost to Syracuse, they got into the ACC championship game and just so happened to beat SMU on a 51-yard field goal. Like, I was ready to throw up during that. Like, literally, we just beat this team, and then I said this too. They backdoored their way in. I don't care what kind of flack any Clemson fan or anybody else wants to give me. Clemson backdoored their way in to the playoffs this year. They only got in because Miami lost.
Exactly.
Not because of anything they did on the field. So they backdoored their way in. We had just beat them. But then everybody wants to weigh this all, though, on the bowl games. You know what I mean? Everybody, oh, well, Alabama lost their bowl game. South Carolina lost their bowl game. Missouri almost lost theirs. I'm sure there was plenty other. Florida, I think, lost. I mean, the SEC did not. Georgia, Carson Beck hurt. To your point there, yeah, these guys, I mean, he was in the playoffs. Last play of the first half, dang near breaks his elbow. And so now he's down in Miami. And so just all of this college football, man, it's just drama, drama, drama all the time. It never fails. Everything's drama. But everybody wants to compare bowl games when they're meaningless now because of the 12-team playoff.
Yeah, because now it's the way that they market it. It's not so much the bowl game itself, because back when we were really beginning to watch college football, I'm sure that the BCS era, you sat there and said, hey, when you won a bowl game, it was momentum going into the next season, in the sense of, hey, when these kids are going to make a decision and your team wins a bowl game, all of a sudden you're more excited. Or going the other direction, it's when you have a kid who has a soft verbal, for example, and then all of a sudden that could be the reason why they commit or decommit from your school. But now it's just in a different sort of generation now, where the bowl games are just essentially another game and a way to possibly travel, and a little bit of a money grab. But it's cool seeing all the new sponsors, though. So in that regard, if it's getting some more eyes on the product, then I guess not the end of the world, right?
Right. Well, I mean, and that's all we're trying to do right now is get more eyes on your product and my product, the Southern Fried Gentleman of Southern Fried Sports, and Mr. Rob Sheply. Man, thank you so much for having me here. It's
Yeah.
amazing. And the one thing you just said though, I didn't want to try to steal the combo, but you said soft verbal. Do you know the last time I've heard that word? When I
Uh,
played NCAA football in 2007, and I saw it from one of my commits. They just commit now and decommit. There is no soft verbal anymore.
yeah, that's what I mean. And for people who've watched me before, I'm very much a old school kind of traditionalist. If it's up to me, we would still be playing in the BCS if it's up to me. But again, I don't want to digress too much. But as we transition now going the into the bowl games, you mentioned it before, talk about Mike Shula as the play call, as now the de facto offensive coordinator. Now Dwayne Loggins accepted the job at Appalachian State. And we talked about this a little bit off camera, how Shula arguably was really kind of the man behind the curtain, because he is the quarterback's coach too. So with that said, what kind of differences do you see the offense having this season? And what do we need to see from LaNorris Sellers to really make that next step into being an even stronger passer? Because I think everybody knows about his athleticism and everything, but what about him as a passer do we really have to be able to see South Carolina really take that next step, going from 9 wins to possibly 10 or 11?
Right. And I'll start with the last thing you said there. I think the most important thing is he needs someone to throw the ball to. It's not so he's got passing ability. Everybody wants to say he's a running back, especially Clemson fans. They say it's going to be hard for a running back to win the Heisman next year, considering LaNorris, I think it's like 8th in Heisman, odds for next year. And they all say, well, he's a running back, so we ain't got nothing to worry about. So he needs some weapons. And I highlighted this issue back during the spring game when the Gamecocks did not attempt a single pass past 20 yards during an entire spring game. I get it. You want to be vanilla. You don't want to give away too much. But how much could you possibly give away by sending all 4 wide receivers on a streak route and at
Yeah.
least attempting one pass beyond 20 yards?
Even a play action, why not play action at least?
Anything. And so I felt like LaNorris has this little bit of a LeBron effect. Okay. Everybody kind of wants to sit back and just watch him do his thing. And so I said they're breaking their routes off too early. They're turning around, having to look to see what LaNorris is doing as a scrambler. Because, I mean, if your quarterback's rolling right, you're running a route way over here on the left, you're not going to do the guy any good.
Right.
And so he needs receivers, though, definitely. I mean, our leading receiver this year was a tight end. And then to the whole Mike Shula thing, yes, Mike Shula coached Cam Newton. As a former Carolina Panther fan, I like the hire. And I felt since the Ole Miss game that Mike Shula has been in control. And I'll give you a piece of evidence as to why. During that Missouri game, when the Gamecocks needed to go on that game-winning drive, Shane Beamer wasn't talking to Dowell Loggins in that headset. He said, "Hey, Mike, remind LaNorris he's got 3 timeouts here." So why would that message not go to Dowell Loggins, the offensive coordinator? Well, that's because Dowell Loggins maybe just had the title and at that point wasn't really the offensive coordinator. Therefore, that's why he went to go get a new job at App State. Think about Clayton White. People have asked to interview Clayton White. Guess who's still on staff, though? Clayton White. Dowell Loggins, I won't say he was forced out, but it was almost like a Wes Goodwin situation for Clemson.
Exactly. And Clayton White's probably if I were Clayton White, I'd be waiting out until Tyson Hill accepts a new job past Western Kentucky, and he'll probably go back there and take that job. If I had to guess, because obviously he played football at NC State or whatnot too, so maybe he's holding out. He could even be holding out for that job too. But if you're him, you're probably just holding out for that too. But I mean, Mike Shula, he's well experienced. I'm not going to get into his stint as the Alabama coach 20 years ago. But I mean, offensive coordinator with the Panthers, with the Giants, but Sellers fits the mold in terms of what a Mike Shula offense looks like. And I think that's probably the most exciting part for me, in the sense of you don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's, hey, can we get a couple more receivers in here? Can we get another running back who is going to complement Sellers just like Rocket Sanders did?
Mm-hmm.
And how do you try to become a little bit more than just a running team? How can you become more of a vertical threat? Exactly what you were saying too.
Right. Got to be a vertical threat. And the one thing too I would point out, we just saw Ohio State last night. They copied a play that Alabama ran a few years ago. And that's my one big question too for the Gamecock coaches and coordinators. Are y'all not watching these other teams on offense? Like, you want to be creative. Shane Beamer wants to be creative on special teams. I would much prefer you to use that creativity on offense. You want to put a defensive tackle in the game? Put him in on offense. Don't wait until you need this pressure-packed 4th down and, you're attempting to go, block a punt or fake a punt or whatever the case may be. Use that creativity on 1st down, 2nd down, 3rd down, and then you won't have to be so creative on special teams.
And I mean, it's just like any other football game too, right? When you set yourself up on 2nd and 3rd downs, on second and 3rd, 2nd and 4th, instead you have to set yourself up for 2nd and 8, and you hope that LaNorris Sellers somehow scrambles for a 10-yard pass and takes 20 hits, when in reality he should be able to go through his progressions, have a receiver or two to go to, and that should be it. And granted, you could talk about Tyler Warren at Penn State, or Evans over at Notre Dame, but having a tight end as your primary target only gets you so far.
Yeah, right. It does. And I think we got Faison from Utah State as the running back coming in. We need to hit a few wide receivers. Nick Harbor, Mazio Bennett, both of those guys coming back are really good. I don't know that either one of them are a true number one. And so in order for the Gamecocks, though, to take a step up, Shane Beamer's got to continue to coach the way he has been. Mike Shula's offense has to work. And again, I think that was I think they were being a little bit vanilla in the Citrus Bowl. Looking forward to next year. Obviously, right. Big matchup. Same place the national championship was played last night against Virginia Tech to open the season. So that's a big matchup to open. I mean, here we are. We're going to play 2 ACC opponents next year. So if we can somehow beat Virginia Tech, Clemson, win another 6 games or so in the SEC, no reason the Gamecocks should not be in the playoffs next year.
Exactly. And they're set up for some pretty good success, right? I mean, 2025 class and the 2024 class are both ranked 19th. 40%, 46% of their recruits are in states. They're doing a pretty good job at branching themselves out into the Carolinas and the Floridas and whatnot too. And
Yeah.
we mentioned Clayton White a little bit, and particularly on the defensive side of the ball. You know, we talked about, just a couple seconds ago, how the Gamecocks have a realistic chance at possibly making a playoff appearance if a couple of different things go their way. So with that said, what are some improvements on deep? This will be the last question that I ask you. What are some of the defensive improvements in particular that are going to be the difference between them being a 9-win team versus a 10 or 11, possibly making some noise in the SEC?
Most of it, I think, will be replacing the really good players that we've already mentioned. Kyle Kennard, Debo Williams, Demetrius Knight, Nick Eamon-Mori, DQ Smith is possibly gone as well. I think a lot of it will be replacing those guys. Honestly, the defense overachieved this year. I was very skeptical about them going into the season. I thought they might be like a colander. You know what a colander is? Where you pour your noodles and all the water runs through.
Exactly. Yeah.
That on pass defense in 2023, that is what the Gamecocks defense was. It was a colander that let all the water come through. They might catch a few stray noodles. And so they overperformed last year. So losing guys like Nick Eamon-Mori, who's projected to be a first rounder, Kyle Kennard, projected to be a first rounder, Debo Williams, Demetrius Knight, I'm sure we got Boogie Huntley. We're losing him. Tonka Hemingway, we're losing him.
Yeah.
So I don't know that they'll be able to replace their defensive production. So they still need to make some noise, possibly in the portal. But to your point, to a minute ago, their recruiting has been well. They had 3 freshman All-Americans on the offensive side of the ball. So, I mean, the recruiting is there. The development is there. It's still going to be a tough schedule every year. We know that. So, I mean, being a Gamecock fan, man, it's literally, I don't know, like playing Russian roulette or a box of chocolates. You don't know what you're going to get. Will it be the bullet? Will it be the empty clip? Will it be a fruit-filled chocolate or a good chocolate? You just don't know year to year. It's so hard to watch. It is.
Exactly. And you just have to deal with the high when you have the highs and when you have the lows and the lows. And I guess that's as part of being any college football fan, really, but especially in the SEC now that you have Texas and Oklahoma in the SEC too. But Southern Fried Gentleman, JD Wyatt, dude, pretty generous for your time. And, fans out there, definitely check out Greenville Sports Media and Southern Fried Sports.
Hey, Rob, thank you so much for having me, man. It was a pleasure. It's always good just to vent for a little bit. And I don't get to do like just my reaction to questions very often. So I appreciate the opportunity. Y'all make sure to hit subscribe, like, follow, and don't forget me at JD Wyatt 06 on X, the Southern Fried Gentleman, and GreenvilleSportsMedia.com. Y'all be blessed, not stressed.